Hi everyone, really nice to be here. My name is Alison Rosewarne. As mentioned, my pronouns are she, her. And yeah, I've been working in IT for quite some years. The XML jokes from yesterday, just A1, they really did it for me. My first 10 years were in consulting and there was a lot of XML there. After that, I moved to more product companies, which was nice because you can see how things pan out in the long run. At the moment, I'm the exec manager of architecture at REA. I've been there for 11 years, so I've really come up through the ranks. And today, I'd like to share our journey scaling with platform products. So you might know REA through our flagship brands on the right, like realestate.com.au. You might also be familiar with our mortgage broking business, Mortgage Choice. So we are an Australian startup success company. So we started in a small garage in 1995. Now we have over 3,000 employees worldwide. And our mission is to change the way the world experiences property. We're also an API company. So we have the REA Partner Platform, which helps integrate with our customers better. And we have APIs around listings data, leads data, campaign reporting. And we have a property data business called PropTrack. And that enables people to get access to next generation property intelligence. So this is used by banks and other providers. So REA has been and continues to be a growth company. This particular image, very hard to read all the detail, is up in the ground floor of our Cremorne office. And it kind of highlights that we've been growing and growing and growing. So not just growing in the Australian market, but growing globally in India, Southeast Asia, in the United States, but growing into other adjacencies as well, particularly in the financial sector. So today's story is going to start in 2017, so one of the points on that growth curve. So you can see we are still innovating in the local market, releasing the first virtual reality property app in Australia. We've signed a partnership with NAB to get into the home loan space and adjacency, and we've just invested in PropTiger, which is an Indian business. In terms of size, at this point, REA's grown to just over 40 squads, and we've got over 500 systems, over 100 Amazon accounts. So over the years, we have made a number of deliberate choices in pursuit of growth in the areas of people, process, and technology. When it comes to technology, our approach has really evolved. So we've actively decomposed our monolithic applications into microservices. We've migrated to the cloud, embraced DevOps. We've got a you build it, you run it type mindset. So all our teams look after the software that they create. We have a number of APIs centered around our experiences and also our domains. Most of these are RESTful APIs. We also have GraphQL ones. And we've created a couple of platforms in support of our marketplaces. So a consumer platform and a customer platform. We've also made changes with how we approach our teams. So agile transformation, long in the past, cross-functional teams, as you would expect. But what we did is we really set a mandate to experiment and learn. We were doing lots of new things. The cloud was rapidly evolving, and so we said, it's fine, move fast. Don't worry about duplication. We'll share wins and we'll standardize later. So all the teams thought that was great. And they all operated within our kind of shared REA group values. So that was useful. When it comes to process, we don't really love process, but we do add it when we need it. So we spent a bit of time building a shared understanding for the software that we create, like what should that look like? What does it mean for a system to be healthy? From a development lens, operations, architecture, and our teams review the health of the systems every quarter. We take action if we need to. We have a dedicated custodianship budget as well. We introduced some processes around decision making. So this really encouraged a lot of collaboration. We knew we had this duplication. It was important to talk to other teams about what they were doing and to also consider trade-offs really accurately. A good side effect of this framework was we got documentation about these decisions. And what we found as we got more systems and more teams is we spent a lot of time writing code in one another's code bases. So we introduced a process called Federated delivery to help manage that. So this is a bit of a quick overview on federated delivery. Could probably talk about this for 20 minutes. But what you can see is it's a guide. It helps explain how to interact between squads when you need to get work done together. So the lowest level, level 0, sort of roadmap alignment. This is quite unpleasant. This is when you have to kind of say, please, 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 can you do some work for me? Try and get prioritised from their backlog. The internal open source model, probably the most prevalent. That's where we can pull requests into each other's code bases. This can be tricky at times. The system health becomes quite a factor there. Also whether you know the technology or not and how much support you can get. The next level up, which is kind of one of our platform delivery models, is independent federated delivery. And that's where there's a discrete architectural component that you can own, like a front end, for example, that's then composed together into a larger construct. And then finally, the highest level of federated delivery, which provides the most autonomy, is where you've got that provider-consumer relationship, where a team provides an API and you can access it self-service, and there's good documentation. So this all sounds pretty good. You know, we're growing, we're evolving, we're iterating on approaches. But we're seeing this. So this is the growth in the volume of systems that we're managing. So the number of discrete deployable units. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. You would expect this to happen as you decompose your monoliths. As you go into new markets, you need new capabilities. But what we're also seeing is this. So we're seeing a lot of divergence with our technology, right? Because everybody can choose what they want. This is an example from the programming languages scene. We've got all these programming languages, which means we've got a variety of build systems, testing frameworks, web frameworks, API frameworks, and so on. Now, some of these languages are hanging around from older systems we haven't replatformed yet. Some of them came through acquisition. Some of them are just necessary, right? We have a mobile app. That means we need to use Objective-C. But a lot of it is just the consequence of local choice and teams wanting to try something new. And what we found over time as we moved system ownership around, as we were trying to better kind of model our markets, you might end up owning a bit of divergent technology. So you might be an expert, have a background in something like Java, and all of a sudden you have half Ruby systems. The other thing we're seeing is that because we're autonomous and we're moving fast and we love automating things, we're creating a lot of tools. So we do a project, we create a tool. Maybe someone's really passionate about something, it's a bit of a side hustle, or might even come out of our hack days that we run regularly. But these tools are not always maintained, and so they become legacy. Then there are some other tools which are really powerful. They're really great to use, but they're quite hard to understand. We have the internal open source model, so you can go and read the code, like to understand the config values, but you don't really want to do that all the time. And you can talk to the person who wrote the tool, if they're still around, but it's pretty time-consuming getting them working. So what we found is that the poor developer experience really affected adoption. And then finally, there's this large category of tools that just do the same thing. You would not believe how many tools we had to deploy software to the cloud. Like, we only used one cloud. We had many, many tools. We also had many CI servers. We experimented and thought it was a good idea to have Jenkins and Bamboo and Buildkite all at the same time. We had a lot of tools that had worked well really locally, but then the project ended. We didn't have time to generalize it so everybody could use that tool. And sometimes the better option, was known, but we just couldn't actually get round to finishing the migration. So we had a lot of duplication, and this was causing a lot of frustration. So it was frustrating for our teams, but it was also frustrating for people managing teams. We just couldn't understand why some work was taking so long and delivery was unpredictable. And the duplication had really got out of hand. So we had these good things in place, like platforms, but at this point we were growing, not scaling. And it was really preventing our teams from focusing on the actual business problems we wanted them to, solving the consumer and customer problems, because they were too busy managing everything and thinking about plumbing and infrastructure. So to add a bit more context, this is kind of what the organisation was thinking about. This is from our half-year investor pack. I'm told charts are not supposed to look like this, from our CFO. So the red line, you've got your revenue growth going down, and then the grey line is the operational expenses going up, and they've like crossed over each other. That's not a good thing. And like there's a lot going on that contributed to this, right? We were finishing an office fit out. There's that disclaimer about iProperty, our Southeast Asia business. But what it meant was that people were really looking for kind of optimization, and cost efficiency was really top of mind. And then this is what was coming, right? So later in 2017, we acquired a majority stake in Smartline, which is a mortgage broking business. So we were really accelerating our financial services strategy. So things were heating up. And what we were asking ourselves is, how do we achieve this key outcome? How can we maximise the time available for teams to focus on solving customer and consumer problems? So on the left-hand side, there's quite a small chunk of time available, and all the rest of the time is going to other stuff, building more cloud deployment tools, handcrafting infrastructure components. What could we just take off the table so teams wouldn't have to worry about that and look like the teams on the right that spent the majority of their time solving customer problems? But more fundamentally, how do we change behaviours? Right, all this stuff we have to maintain, it's gotten too hard. We're seeing this culture of really valuing just starting afresh instead of iterating on something that we already have. We can't find time to finish the job. So we realised that this isn't like a small change. It wasn't just isolated to one pocket of the business. We needed a mindset shift. So changing behaviours is the fundamental part, and we needed to challenge that local optimisation. So a group got together and really acknowledged this and dug into the issues, and they created a manifesto similar to the Agile Manifesto. So we favour the things on the left more than the things on the right. Firstly, we agreed we would start serving others over protecting oneself. We agreed that aligned autonomy over unconstrained autonomy would provide a better path forward. So we needed a mechanism for consistency. We needed to rein in the tech sprawl. We needed more alignment where there actually wasn't business value in diverging, but that didn't mean there was no alignment, no autonomy, sorry. We were at a time where we needed to place more importance on long-term thinking over short-term gains. We needed to embrace an enterprise mindset, REA benefit over team benefit. And perhaps most importantly, we would start treating our products as assets instead of our projects as assets. And we're a product company, so when we started talking this way, it actually felt quite natural, and it was a healthy conversation to have. So once we had the manifesto, we started putting clear guardrails in place. So to provide clarity for teams, we built our own tech radar. We'd done this in the past. This time, we committed to a regular publication cadence. We crowdsourced a complete list of technology used at REA, plotted it on the radar in the familiar rings of adopt, experiment, hold, and retire. So this starting point meant it was faster to create new systems, and it gave us a focus for retiring and migrating other systems. You can check out our tech blog if you want to see how we're iterating on this approach, by the way. And then we spent a bit of time thinking about how would we treat our platforms as products. So we embraced product thinking. Our internal technology building blocks would be treated as products, and they'd be shipped under the Colab brand. That meant they had a product manager, a supporting team. We would do market research and track the life cycle. We would really focus on the developer experience because that was the thing that was going to drive up adoption. So they had to be easy to use, have great documentation and support channels. We wanted to build a recognisable brand so that developers at REA knew what Colab was, trusted it, and would use the tools as they were added. Any good brand needs marketing, so we had to build awareness, make it top of mind, use consistent language, have logos, swag, all that sort of stuff. And we also had to get buy-in at all levels because we weren't just shifting from having a few technology platforms, we were shifting to an organisational level, an organisational-wide platform strategy. So we went all in. We had our CEO talking platforms at our annual tech conference, And then the next day, everybody was talking platforms at our global company conference. So this crew got together and we did a little magic show and launched 4 products. So that was a fun moment in my career. So fast forward to today, 2022. Happy to report that we have managed to shift things along a little bit. So we've decreased the toil and duplication in teams. We have common solutions for common problems, right? Like a design system, a supporting UI kit, cloud deployment platforms. So teams have got more time. The clear guidance has sped up decision making. We still have tech sprawl, but it's constrained. And so we have kind of stronger processes in place to help manage it. We're also evolving our platform thinking. One side effect of having a platform strategy is suddenly everybody wants to build platforms and everything is a platform. So it turns out not everything is a platform. That is quite okay. And then within the area of platforms, this is some sort of early thinking around differentiating our end user platforms that kind of benefit our consumers, our customers, our brokers, internal platforms that are used by our teams, and then the sort of more fundamental components of or capability that can be composed into other platforms or used directly. And so what we recognise is that investment in those lower levels is where you get the most leverage. We're also taking some time to reinvigorate the brand. It turns out that this is a kind of always-on activity. We started with 4 products. We now have many products, and they're organised within this brand family. You can see we have offerings around design, visualisation, data, finance. But there's a bit of a job to be done around reinvigorating the brand. And because we've been going for so long, we actually have an opportunity to modernise and even retire some of those products. It's worth pointing out that this started with collaboration. So team representatives got together and really identified the challenges, and they were feeling the pain. So it wasn't a top-down mandate. It was everyone getting together and acknowledging that we needed change. And the manifesto was a commitment to that change. So what have we learned? So platform benefit comes with scale. Early on, centralisation does make sense. As you grow, there's a point where having a platform makes the most sense. The good news is that these days you actually don't have to build most of it yourself. There's an amazing array of vendors out there. So the mindset shift to long-term company benefit is very important. So software is not just for Christmas. That tech drag, the tech debt, it accumulates and slows you down. And so sometimes this means you have to compromise locally to get the better org-wide outcome. Aligned autonomy does reign in tech sprawl. What we found is if we provide platforms and guardrails, there are actually fewer choices to make, so there's fewer opportunities to diverge. It gets more consistent and it provides teams with freedom from choice. The clear guidance definitely aids alignment, working with your teams to document the generally accepted position on what to use, what to avoid. That works really well, at least it did for us. Treat your platforms as products. You've probably heard lots of X as a product type talks at this conference. It's definitely true. It means you need to think about the life cycle. What is your target market, your acquisition strategy, what are your success metrics, and also to consider that these products have competitors. So you want to focus on your developer experience so your teams just don't want to use anything else. And finally, there comes a point when you have to go in at all levels. You can't just do this, grassroots or off the side of your desk. This is the best way to get traction, funding, and progress. Thanks very much for listening today. If any of this is interesting to you, we're hiring. We've got a careers site. You can check that out. Otherwise, I'll say thank you there and happy to take some questions.
Questions here, yeah.
I remember you briefly mentioned that you had a UI kit. How did you treat that? Did you treat it as a separate team, or did you contribute to it with your existing teams?
Yep, we set up a dedicated team. So the question was around how we achieve the UI kit. So we set up a team that included designers and developers because we actually started with the design system and the design assets and Figma, and having consistent UX patterns means you need consistent tech. Then you get the benefit from building out the UI components. So they built out everything in kind of React-style components. So again, having that consistency of tech choice meant we got more leverage.
Did you also build that in parallel or completely just working on the counterparts?
We already had a large number of user interfaces, so we built that in parallel. And then new systems were built with the UI kit, and then we backported, migrated other systems. We're not 100% there yet, but it's made a big difference. It's also been really great for accessibility, right? You don't always have the time or the expertise in every single team to focus on things like that. But by having a team of specialists, they made sure it was like accessible from day one.
A question here, just.
Might be a little bit off topic, but with the language, you have that big scroll of languages and you started to have to make some decisions about narrowing that down. Did any hiring decisions come into that? Like, these are the skills we currently have, these are the skills that we can hire into? It's all the things that we're facing in my company at the moment.
Yeah, so the question's about our sort of strategy for managing programming languages. We've been working on that a lot, and there's a couple of factors. So one is definitely the hiring market. So our talent team let us know what is easy to hire for. There's our internal training programs. So we accept that we need to teach people the REA way. Like, we have these platforms, they need to learn the platforms. Sometimes they need to learn the languages that we use as well. We got together as a group and agreed on kind of the desirable attributes for programming languages. So if we want to add one and it doesn't fit, things like, having really good documentation, like having a code of conduct, stuff like that, we just won't consider those languages. And then we use our tech radar to track what lens it should be in, and we monitor the system volumes as well. There's quite a few factors that go into it. It's quite hard because we want to experiment, but the long tail for getting rid of a language, like Perl, it is still there from 1995. So when that goes, big party.
Yeah, just 1 minute.
When you're talking about moving from, say, a group-based, team-based objective to more like a corporate-based help, what are some pitfalls of pushing that transition?
We use OKRs, and so the OKRs have been a really great mechanism to help build alignment, because you have your top-level OKRs and then it trickles down. The reality is that there still are trade-offs that need to be made. I guess the pitfall is not to talk about it, because it's going to end up compromising someone at some point. We've got good mechanisms in place to do that. It's just, you just have to keep working at it, I guess.
Okay, I think we've got time for one more question. I've got one question. How far up the stack does your platform approach go? I think there's technology platforms like shared infrastructure, etc. And then there's more business-oriented platforms like, for example, a payments platform or a customer master platform, etc. Do you have a limit as to where you go in platform thinking?
Sky's the limit.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no limit. We have platforms at all layers. As I mentioned, the kinds of lower layer platforms like our design system, you can use that in many, many different areas. Our cloud deployment tools you can use in many areas. Then we have internal platforms that bring together a lot of these capabilities to make it easier to do things like managing batch data jobs. But then, we have a platform to help ship product to consumers, to customers. So teams get things like identity management out of the box. You don't have to worry about SEO because that's kind of built into the platform, even standard layouts. So as much platform as we can get.
Excellent. Okay. All right. Please join me in thanking Alison.
Thank you.